Hey there winos, this is VINCE.WINE, and today I'm going to share some tips for tasting with you guys as I wrap up my 3-part series on how to taste wine. If you haven't seen the first 2 videos, stop right now and go check them out. I will link them right here or here, I'm not sure where it'll show up. Today we're going to look at those last 2 steps, sip and savor. Thanks for joining me, and before we get started today, if you want to be a winoceros, hit subscribe on this channel to become a wino today. I'll put out new videos every single week, so be sure to hit that bell icon to stay notified for more great wine content. This is the Mona Lisa. I'm told she's a pretty incredible piece of art, but if I'm being perfectly honest with you, I really don't have any idea why. I know it has something to do with like the perspective of one side of her being further than the other side of her. I know it has something to do with maybe color palettes, brush strokes, her mysterious smile. Of course, that's the intrigue of her. I know Da Vinci painted her, which is pretty cool in and of itself, but to be honest with you, I don't really know enough about art to appreciate what's actually going on there and what really makes her special. But I'm sure that if I took an art history class or an art appreciation class, I would totally fall even more in love with her because I would get what's so great. Don't worry, I still love you. Okay, that was a not so subtle analogy for wine appreciation, but it really does work the same way. Wine is for everyone. You don't have to be a sommelier to be able to love it. But it is true that the more you learn about it, the more you can appreciate wine. And that's why it's so important to really take the time to learn the most basic step, how to taste wine. All right, I've got some Zinfandel here, and I'm gonna go through those first steps real quick just to get a little acquainted with the wine. From what I can see, it's a pretty high concentrated and dark wine. As I turn the glass, you can see it's got some really pretty legs on it there, telling me about its viscosity, possible residual sugar, and possibly higher alcohol as well.
I shall volatilize the esters.
And take the nose. Oh, classic Zinfandel. Jammy fruit is the first thing I get, and then a little back end of almost this like dill from oak. So step 3 on how to taste wine is sip. Okay, I know that probably seems a little silly, but it's so important to make sure that the wine is hitting every single part of your palate. You've got taste buds all over your palate, and so you want to get the wine to hit you in all the right places. That's why you kind of move it around like mouthwash. And what we're doing there is just confirming a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. I want to confirm that everything that I got right here on the nose is still there and translates to the palate. For example here, that jamminess, it's totally there. And in fact, once it's on the palate, I'm able to get a little bit more complexity. I'm getting more like figs. And something that I didn't get quite on the nose that surprised me on the palate is a little bit of black pepper. Kind of cool. So when we sip, we're trying to confirm what is on the palate, and we're seeing if we can discover anything new. While the wine was on the palate, I was also getting an understanding of its structure. I want to know, what does this wine feel like on the palate? Because that is so much a part of the experience in wine. You can have a lively wine, you can have a dry wine, you can have a crisp wine. There are so many different possibilities when it comes to how wine interacts physically on your palate. Let's check out the structure on this Zin. Great, beautiful, rich structure here. So some of the basic things I'm looking for here are tannin structure, acidity, alcohol content, sweetness, and overall finish. All right, let's get into some kind of cool tips and tricks. I'm gonna teach you how to look for a couple structural items in the wine. Number 1, let's look for tannin. I can feel that gripping on my gums and teeth and tongue and roof of my mouth. That grip, that is tannin. And when you swish your wine around like mouthwash and you feel that grip, that is how you look for tannin. The lighter the grip, the lighter tannin structure in the wine. Tannin is so important in a wine because that is what cuts through anything rich that you're eating. That's why Cabernet Sauvignon and steak is such a classic pairing. Those tannins are gonna cut right through the richness and fattiness of your steak. Tannin is gonna cut through anything else that has tannin. Think like really dry aged cheeses, something like aged Gouda or Asiago. A wine with heavy tannin is gonna cut right through that and get your palate ready for the next bite. Or if you take something like a really rich piece of fudge, tannin is gonna cut through that richness of the fudge. Purpley, fruity style of Cabernet Sauvignon with fudge could be a really interesting and kind of sexy pairing. Okay, now let's look for acidity. And this is an interesting one. Just follow along. I'm gonna put the wine on my palate, and then I'm gonna take the tip of my tongue and point it on the roof of my mouth and hold it there. And the more watering sensation you feel, the higher the acidity. Okay, I didn't get a whole lot of watering right there, so this wine doesn't have a massive amount of acidity, which makes it kind of a nice sipper. I know that acidity sounds bad, but acidity is another really important element in wine because acidic wine holds up to acidic foods. So think of something that has a lot of acidity in it, like salads with citrus fruits. You may want a white wine that has enough acidity to hold up to the citrus fruits in your salad. Or think of Italian food. You've got all those tomato sauces that have so much acidity in there, pizza, pastas. Well, acidity in your red wine is going to make it possible to enjoy those Italian delicacies. And as a matter of fact, that's why wines like Sangiovese, a classic Italian wine, and in fact the grape for Chianti, is going to be so acidic because it holds up to the foods of the local region. Last tip, we're going to look at alcohol in the wine. Oh, that was painful. Here's what just happened. I just put the wine on my palate, and while it was still on there, before I swallowed, I breathed in like that, sort of aerating the wine on my palate, but also allowing me to feel the burn of the alcohol. The rule of thumb is the deeper that you can feel the burn, the more alcohol you have. That burn, that's heat, right? That's why we would call a wine with high alcohol content hot. Now this wine certainly isn't hot. I would estimate it's about 15, maybe 15.5 on the alcohol. And in fact, it is 15% on the alcohol. So I was pretty close. And you can kind of measure that. You know, maybe this is 9% or 10%, and down here is gonna be like your 17% alcohol. And then way down there might be spirits. But we won't talk about that on this channel. And of course, alcohol is important in a wine, right? Because that's what gets you drunk. Just kidding. Alcohol is important in a wine because it adds body to the wine. It gives the wine a little bit more of a lift in structure, and heck, yeah, because it makes you happy. I'm finished with my wine. But this actually leads me to a very important step, the finish. The finish is where the wine leaves you once you're done with it. For example, right now I'm left with all that beautiful fruit on the palate. The longer you can taste the wine after you've swallowed it, the higher quality of the wine. That's a long finish. That is an indicator of a really, really well-made wine. If you swallow your wine and it just falls right off as soon as it leaves your palate, that's a really poor experience and honestly a really bad wine. You should be able to taste it for quite some time. Life is too short for bad wine. Not gonna lie, I've been pouring a lot of wine in this video. I hope I remember what I'm talking about. Okay, winos, let's wrap this up. Step 3 is sip. Getting the wine on the palate and checking not only for the things that you found on the nose and confirming that they're actually there, those few things, but also experiencing the structure of the wine, the alcohol, the tannin, the acidity, and sweetness of the wine, not to be confused with fruitiness. Some wines can be extremely fruity, like Zinfandel. That's what makes them so approachable. But just because because it has a lot of fruit doesn't necessarily mean it's very sweet. So just be mindful of those things, and the best way to learn is to taste more wine, not just drink. And taste with someone who knows about wine so that you can share in some of their knowledge, or just keep watching this channel. And finally, step 4 is discovering the finish of the wine, savoring that and understanding what does it leave you with. How long can you taste that wine? Is it a high quality wine? Ooh, one thing I forgot, mouthfeel on the finish. That really changes. When it's on the palate, you get acidity and tannin and alcohol, and you might get different textures as well, like a grittiness, a chalkiness maybe it's silky, maybe it's smooth, and that can change on the finish. It might finish crisp, and it might finish bright, or it might finish super dry. The texture of the wine is also so important to the experience of the wine. And in the vast world of wine, there's so much to be experienced. I encourage you to go out there, pop some corks, taste wine, understand wine, learn about wine, and love wine, and enjoy wine. You're definitely not going to be wasting your time. You're not going to regret it. Do it with people. Wine brings people together. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. If you enjoyed what you saw here, please leave me a like. That helps a lot. And until next time, winos, drink safe and drink well. Has the wine aged? Does it have new life?